We found an amazing castle in New Zealand today and we're going to explore the gardens. That's brought to you with the support of Darlac and Cobra Garden. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Well, Jill and I are still in New Zealand and we're down in Dunedin on the South Island, and we've come out onto the Otago Peninsula to this amazing castle. This is Larnach Castle here. It's high up in the hills and it's got some amazing panoramic views. Now, you might think you're in Scotland when you take a look at it, but no, we are in New Zealand. It was built to look like a Scottish castle, and it was built by a man called William Larnach in the 1870s, and the gardens around it were all laid out at the time. The house was sold at the end of the 1800s and it had many owners over the next 50-60 years until 1967, when it was discovered by the Baxter family in a very sorry state. The gardens were derelict and the castle were derelict, but they took it on as a lifetime project, and over that time they've gradually restored not only the castle back to its former glory, but the gardens themselves, and they've added a lot more to the whole estate here. So what we're going to do is have a quick look round. Now, the gardens immediately around the castle have been restored and planted sympathetically as they would have been in Victorian times, with lots of colourful and ornamental plants from all over the world. But once we get out into the woodland, we can see some of the amazing native plants that New Zealand has to offer. And this is the formal part of the garden, which is absolutely beautiful, very much like an English herbaceous border or English cottage garden. In fact, the weather today is a little bit like being back in England. Beautiful yesterday, today a bit cloudy and a few showers as well, but it doesn't spoil a thing. Lots of plants you'll instantly recognise in here. We've got shrubs like the lovely hydrangea, we've got weigelas, we've got roses growing on the trellis, and then the lovely perennials. We've got alstroemeras, we've got herbaceous geraniums, we've got phlox, campanula, you name it, it's all growing in here and makes this wonderful tapestry of colour. Many of the plants that we grow in our gardens back in the UK originally come from New Zealand, things like hebes and pittosporum and griselinia, but there are lots and lots of others. This is one that will grow in very sheltered parts of the UK down in the south, and we know it as Sephora, but here in New Zealand it's known as Calfa, and in Maori Calfa means yellow, and that's because when this is in flower in late spring, early summer, it just hangs with racemes of yellow pea-like flowers. It's also the national flower of New Zealand, and what we see it in now, we've got this beautiful foliage and we've got the seed pods hanging here, and as you can see, it makes a wonderful tree. This is a tree that you'll never see back home in the UK. This is known as the Rimmu, and this is a native tree that would have been growing in the forest here when the early European settlers arrived in New Zealand, and it can grow up to about 40 metres tall, and it's got just such a wonderful, graceful weeping habit. It is actually a type of conifer, sometimes known commonly as the red pine, because the timber is a really red colour, so it was a valuable timber for all sorts of furniture making, and this is a lovely, lovely tree to have as a specimen in this garden. Now, this is one that you might be familiar with, Cordyline australis, or the cabbage palm. We often plant them in the middle of lovely containers with green, variegated or purple foliage, and they make a lovely architectural plant in the garden. But this is what they grow like in New Zealand. to about 12 metres tall and a multi-stem tree. These palms here are called nikau, and these are New Zealand's only native palm. And apparently early European settlers and the Maoris used to eat the leaf buds and the flower stalks, but they look a bit tough to me, so I'm not going to try them today. Even though it's drizzly and there's some low cloud, there's still a magnificent view down there to the bay. But I've come to this spot because I wanted to show you this. This is one of my favourite New Zealand plants. Its botanical name is Metrosideros, known locally in New Zealand as Pohutakawa or the New Zealand Christmas tree, because it has these bright red flowers through December and January. And although here we are in mid-February, there's just a few hanging on some of these trees because down in the South Island it's that little bit cooler. Tends to grow best by the coast, and when they are in full flower they are absolutely amazing. And I just thought we'd end with a little bit of toilet humour, because this building here that looks like a castle was in fact the toilet block for the castle itself. All the waste was collected along with cattle and horse manure. It was fermented, and in the centre of it was a big glass jar that collected the methane gas. That was then pumped with a foot pump back to the castle to light the chandeliers so they could see what they were doing. So hope you've enjoyed our little tour of New Zealand, looking at some gardens and different plants. The next time you see us, we're going to be back in England in our Lincolnshire garden, where we'll be doing more jobs. So we'll see you then. Bye.